Hello, my name is Mr. Patrick On from Gbc Lumpur. Today, I would like to speak about the global market insights in the year 2021, zero contact market forecast because of the situation the whole world is facing right now. I would like to break up my presentation today to three parts. Number one, let's talk about the current market scenarios during this current COVID pandemic. And also, I would like to speak more on the second part about Malaysia's prospects and also the current situation in Malaysia during this COVID crisis. And lastly, let's talk about what are the opportunities available for Korean companies in the year 2021 after this experience on this COVID crisis. I think as we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has caused the year 2020 to be very significantly different from all other years because the whole world is experiencing a very difficult situation based on either politically, economically, or socially. It's something that we can look at is a global issue and not isolated, and which is good in a way that it has now deglobalized world economies into focusing on each of their own markets. Every country is focusing on each of their own markets. We have airlines industry closed, airports closed, travel industries, hotel, hospitalities are all closed. So most people are just focusing on their business opportunities within their own countries. Export and imports have drastically reduced for certain countries because of the supply chain interruptions in certain of this global trade. So obviously we Malaysia have also experienced this slowdown in economy significantly, especially during the lockdown from March to June this year, whereby all citizens are to stay at home. We are now entering a recovery phase of our COVID pandemic, and always very mindful of a second rise in infection. So we're here to explore opportunities what is there in Malaysia for Korean companies and Malaysian companies to work together. During this crisis in the year 2020, Malaysian government has taken a very drastic step to protect people's lives more than their livelihood. And because of that, due to the shutdown of the economy, the country has experienced one of the lowest cases of COVID in Southeast Asia. Of course, the cost of it is the economy price that we have to pay. So there was a forecast of about 3.1% reduction in our economic performance this year. However, Malaysia's overall economy is expected to remain resilient based on our diversified economic structure, strong and systematic financial system, effective public health response, and also a proactive macroeconomic policy. And there are also certain big projects the government is actually focusing on, like the Bandar Malaysia project, which is a huge integrated property development in Malaysia in the center of Kuala Lumpur, worth about 140 billion ringgit, which is about 30 billion US dollars over the next 15 years, which will spearhead the economy and jumpstart the economy in terms of the construction industry, construction sector, infrastructure development. And also the ringgit, the currency of Malaysia, has remained one of the strongest in this region during this period because of good macroeconomic policies, and we are expecting the ringgit to remain strong. We are expecting to see a recovery in the year 2021 based on the current government projections. During this COVID crisis, the government has also given a lot of significant subsidies to the citizens of Malaysia in terms of deferment of payment to the banks, a moratorium on loans, which means that the normal citizen of Malaysia would be able to spend more despite the drop in the slowdown in the economy, because they don't have to pay their loans and they can stretch their loans over a longer period of time. And the moratorium has now been extended to end of the year, giving people more cash flows within the individual households of Malaysia, so that the middle income of Malaysia can still continue to spearhead the spending in consumer industries, and to spearhead the economy. So the moratorium was a good move by the government, and also the government has also given out a lot of prihatin with local subsidy packages to the lower income group. So to continue to spearhead domestic spending within the communities, and so as to help a lot of businesses to sustain, especially the SMEs, to go through this period of time. It was a tough period for Malaysia the last 6 months, but we can see a lot of improvement since they have come back, economic activities have come back, and the government has spearheaded a lot of projects, and also the MIDA and the MITI, which is the Malaysian International Trade Agencies, have also come out with a lot of good policies for foreign investors to come into Malaysia. For example, for foreign companies coming in with 300 million and above investment in fixed assets, the government has given a 10 years tax incentive for these companies, and for foreign companies investing more than 500 million, the government has also given up to 15 years tax incentives, and this has attracted a lot of companies to come in to Malaysia, which I will speak on that later. Malaysia has also recorded a positive foreign direct investment in the last quarter, bringing in the total FDI to ringgit Malaysia $700 billion as of end June. This is complemented by 726 projects with proposed investments of about 40 billion in the pipeline. So because of these tax incentives, the government has actually drawn in a lot of foreign companies to invest in Malaysia, which I will explain that a bit more later as well. There are two things we are looking forward to in November 2020, next month. Number one is the upcoming budget announcements on November 6th for Malaysian government next year. This will then seek to display and demonstrate what the government is focusing on for post-COVID year 2021, what the government is going to spend on, and the effective transformation tools that the government has to transform the economy, to build the nation's resilience against these economic shocks such as the post-COVID, and also to be able to demonstrate how we can be restarting our economy for next year. So we are looking forward to the budget and to understand what the government is going to do for next year, and how does it benefit the man in the street and also the small medium enterprises. Second most important thing in November, of course, is the US elections, whereby we are going to see whether Donald Trump will be still the president, or there will be a new president by then. This is important because the US-China trade war has impacted Southeast Asia in a big way, and Malaysia, for example, has been one of the recipients of this US-China trade war impact. Whether or not it's going to get better or worse, it will show next year. But so far, the US-China conflict has caused the attraction of more than 32 projects worth about 17.5 billion ringgit Malaysia into Malaysia. These are mainly companies that have relocated to Malaysia, companies that are unable to supply to the US, being based in China due to these trade wars, and they have relocated their manufacturing plants to Malaysia due to the better economic and investment environment in Malaysia, and also the unaffected relationships that Malaysia has with the United States. Currently, we have attracted, MIDA has attracted, as mentioned, 17.5 billion to Malaysia due to the trade war. These are mainly up to May 31st of this year. 86 companies has applied to invest in Malaysia, of which 28 projects with investments worth almost 8.36 billion has been approved, while another 4 projects totaling about 9.14 billion are currently being evaluated, bringing the total to about 17.5 billion ringgit Malaysia, which is about close to $4 billion US. So these projects will be implemented throughout the North and South Malaysia, including East Malaysia, and it will also be forecasted to generate a lot more jobs for the local economy, a lot more jobs will be added into the manufacturing sector, and this will be good for our local economy to jumpstart and to counter the effects of the COVID economic shock. Although this has this supply chain has not been greatly affected in Malaysia, we look forward to attract even more investors from abroad with the government's current post-COVID tax incentives for foreigners to invest in Malaysia. Overall, the government of Malaysia has pumped in about 305 billion ringgit, which is almost 80 billion US dollars into the economy to counter this COVID pandemic. And we expect year 2021 to be a much better environment, and hopefully the borders will start to open. There's already a travel bubble created with countries like Singapore, South Korea, Brunei, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, so that people can start traveling again, because it's important to remain relevant in Southeast Asia as a travel hub for Malaysia, whereby overseas businesses still come into Southeast Asia via Malaysia as a gateway to Asia. So we are currently expecting a lot more borders reopening and friendly inter-government agreements to open up borders in different countries coming 2021. So some of this industry that will start to benefit, of course, is the hospitality industries, the travel industries and airlines. But apart from that, I think the basics of investments in for local domestic market will still remain very strong in certain areas, which is the core basics of our survival, which is mainly things to do with good air, clean water, clean safety, good safety standards, and also lastly, but not least, the food industries. So for clean air, I think people are now very, very mindful of these infectious diseases that can be airborne. So there's a lot more need for air purifiers, air cleaning machines, both commercially and residential. We have a lot of more demand for clean air, and also water purifiers. Good companies from Korea that wants to come to Malaysia to provide good water, good filtration system, so that we all get clean water. It's also a big industry to look at, water, which is the next big thing, because we did have certain economic surprises last month, whereby there was a big water shortage in Malaysia, Klang Valley, in the capital city, because of some contamination in the water supply in the reservoirs. So clean filtration system is for water is also important, and this is something that people are getting more mindful of, that is important for their health. Third, of course, we look at a lot of safety equipment such as gloves, masks, sanitizers. This is continuing to be a very strong market. For example, Malaysia is currently producing a lot of gloves, even though we are a small country with 30 million population. We are producing up to 65% of the world global demand and supply of gloves, whether is it latex, nitro, medical gloves. Malaysia produces up to 65% of world demand, and this is expected to increase as the industry has currently made a lot of money because of the demand, and they have invested those profits into upgrading their equipment, more automation in their production line. That has resulted in supply able to increase in the near future to be able to meet the world demand. And this also provides a good opportunity for Korea, because there are a lot of raw materials in the making of these gloves that comes from Korea, from companies such as LG, Gumho, or any sub-industries that are producing raw materials for this glove industry. So sanitizers as well, there's a lot of demand, continued demand for sanitization, not only for the individuals but for complete buildings, commercial buildings, airports, terminals, big public spaces. Non-stop sanitization process is always often taking places, consuming a lot of raw materials and also machines to clean big spaces, public spaces, and also the residential homes. So there's a lot of industry demand for these sort of products, and of course, last but not least, a lot of food, especially food that is demanded to be eaten conveniently at home, pre-packed food, healthy snacks. People are staying at home more because they work from home, so they are consuming more food at home, and there are a lot of opportunities for Korean exporters to explore what the consumers Malaysia wants in terms of healthy snacks, Korean good food, pre-packaged food like kimchi or anything else. So we look at a lot of explosion in demand in healthy snacks at home, whereby people are staying at home more and consuming more. So one of the things that we also realize in Southeast Asia, even though we have a total combined population of 600 million population in just Southeast Asia alone, more than 300 million, about 310 million people are already online. But because of this COVID pandemic, the number has increased in 2020. That is now forecasted that 350 million people in Southeast Asia are actually connected to the social media or online process, whereby there's a huge opportunity for companies to be engaged in online marketing and selling, just like companies like Lazada, Grab. They're doing really well. Food deliveries and online deliveries through those platforms. So I think there's a good opportunity, a big opportunity, and Gbc Kl has already tied up with big companies like Grab to be able to open up the market for Korean companies to come into market through these channels. So we are working hard on those avenues, whereby we have tied up with this Grab company and able to put in our Korean platform and Korean products on the Grab online platform, so that we can also sell Korean products on that market. So we look forward to new year 2021, and hopefully we have the vaccine for COVID being discovered, and Malaysia has already have an agreement with China to have one of the earliest recipients of the COVID-19 vaccines once it's available. So we are looking forward to a good year next year, 2021, whereby there will be a vaccine available to combat this infectious disease, and hopefully the whole world will benefit once this vaccine has been discovered, and bringing back life back to the offline, because I think online and offline have to survive together in this economic world. But for now, we should be more open and more sustainable through video conferencing, web seminars, and we continue to explore trade, B2B trade, international trade through the online platform. And we are upgrading our knowledge and our technologies in the office to continue to trade with the rest of the world, especially between Korea and Southeast Asia. Consumers and business owners, we continue to open up the gateways of trade through the video conferencing and IT technologies. So for now, I wish everybody to stay safe in 2021, and hope every one of you out there will have a good positive year 2021 ahead, and stay healthy always. Thank you so much. This is Patrick from GBC Kuala Lumpur.